Good evening, Mr. Rickaman, Mr. McDowell, Mr. Duval,
Present.
Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine, here, Mr. Davis, Mayor Benjamin. Thank you.
Here. I'd like to invite Troop 425, Boy Scouts of Lexington County, come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, young man. Thank you. Reverend McDowell, would you give us a word?
Let us bow our heads. Creator God, for all that you've done for us today, for the many activities you've allowed us to accomplish today, and for this time of discussion and gathering, we simply ask that you might be with us, sensitize each one of us so that we might hear, receive, and respond. Lord, we could not leave these words of prayer without asking for each one to be in prayer for the Virginia Beach victims. Violence is everywhere, but you've already declared, even in the midst of storm clouds gathering, sunshine always breaks through. So be with the victims, their families. Be with our city as we continue to grow and expand. We ask it, we claim it. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Reverend McDowell. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir, please.
Item 30?
I'm sorry.
Are you
Yeah, we're
holding
going to
item
hold,
30?
which item number is that?
Item 30?
Hold item 30. All right, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda holding item 30? So move. Second. Moving second, discussion. Seeing none, we'll move the previous question. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine? Aye. Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye.
At this time, we would ask if there's any public input related to these agenda items as outlined. Seeing none, we ask our council to approve consent agenda items 9 through 24.
Is there a motion? So moved. Is there, moving probably second, any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move the previous question. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye.
Moving into a period of presentations, Mayor Benjamin and council, I am going to take a moment of personal privilege and ask that Chief Skip Holbrook come forward. He doesn't know that I'm doing this, but he probably, he thinks he knows a lot. So he's got a lot of his command staff here, so he's probably wondering what's going on. Skip has reached his 5-year mark with the city. I don't know where the time has gone. He actually reached it on April the 9th of this year. He was hired in 2014. And we've talked a lot about the various progresses that have been made under Skip's leadership. I'm so thankful for that from a law enforcement perspective. One of the things I wanted to say tonight is he just celebrated his oldest son's wedding. In the last week or two, he celebrated his youngest child and daughter's accomplishments in school. Athletically and academically, he celebrates his middle son's work ethic with our Parks and Recreation Department and just his general spirit that he loves helping young people and is just a good all-around person like his dad. He and Michelle have become a fat member of this community, and they're part of the fabric of our community. And I just think that says so much because, as you know, when we engaged in hiring a new police chief, that was something that was talked about a lot. You know, are we going to find a chief that was going to be a part of this community and want to be a part of this community? Overall, we needed someone who knew how to be a policeman's chief, and he can do that, and he's a 21st century policing champion, and has been honored for such. But I just have to say I'm very thankful for the decision that was made 5 years ago, because he is truly a member of this community, and he is my friend, and I'm happy to give him his 5-year pin.
Five more years. 5 more.
Well, I wouldn't want to let this opportunity pass me by, because I know Aubrey wouldn't let us.
Where's Aubrey? Usually there's a fire truck coming by right now. You know that, right?
Ms. Wilson, thank you. This was very unexpected. My spider senses went up when I looked around the room and saw some of the staff that's here. Thank you all for being here to support me on this. Again, this was very much a surprise. I love being a police officer. I love and never take for granted the opportunity that you all have given me to lead this great police department in this great city. I love coming to work every day. Some of the people in this room may not like the fact that I come to work every day. But, you know, there was so much risk and opportunity that I saw as I explored the possibility of coming here. And then, you know, once I made that decision to go all in, and you know, I'm forever indebted to the city manager for seeing the qualities that were important to her and what she felt like we needed to move our department forward. But we have an unbelievable police department, and we have so many opportunities to move forward, and we've got tremendous challenges. And I would be less than genuine if I said the challenges weren't a little more than I read into when I got here. But I think we have met each one of these challenges head on. We are good at forecasting and strategically planning, and I think we've positioned ourselves to move our department in the direction it needs to go. This is extraordinary times for our city in terms of development, and you know, we are absolutely an example for other cities to follow in terms of diversity and inclusiveness and sense of neighborhoods, and just what it means to be a prosperous city that looks after each other's neighbors. And it's just, you know, I'm blessed to be able to lead a department in that type of situation. This has been greatest honor and opportunity of my professional life, and it certainly has been wonderful personally. And thank you for recognizing my family, and thank you all for this.
Well, Chief, it's been our pleasure. I've had the opportunity to travel the country, a number of cities, a number of meetings, both under the Obama administration and then under President Trump's administration, sitting through meetings on 21st century policing. How do we modernize police departments and lead with our heads, with good data, and also with our hearts, a heart for being peace officers. And I can say without question, I've worked in law enforcement. I've engaged with some of the best chiefs that we've had in this entire country. And I firmly believe we have the very best chief of police in the entire country. So keep up the great work. God bless you.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
Thank you all.
Can I say one more thing? I know Teresa said he is my friend, and I think you're everybody's friend. Even the bad guys still like you. I don't know how you do that, but everybody likes you. So for that, thank you for everything you do. I mean, I really mean that.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Skip. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We are going to skip item 25. It's a fairly big group coming to join us very briefly, and we'll tell you about the Savvy Arts Venture Challenge when they get here and move forward. Mr. Mayor, with the recognition of the Columbia Youth Commission, the Honorable Mayor Stephen K. Benjamin.
So excited as we engage Generation, are you guys Generation Z? Is that what you are? Generation Z or, you know, we so often talk about young people being the future of this city and the future leadership in the city. And right now, because of so many different changes in society, we're actually seeing young people lead now, right now. And we decided that as opposed to always talking about issues regarding youth, that we actually should actively continue to engage our young people, not just in a meet and greet capacity, but actually ask young people across Richmond 1, Richmond 2, Lexington, Richmond 5, and our private schools to conduct an election, to actually elect leaders. And I forget how many thousands of votes we had. How many? 3,000 votes? 3,000 votes. And wound up with our very first Columbia Youth Commission. These young people have been elected to represent their peers. We have 5 of the 9 of them elected here tonight. Ronit, are you the only man? Are you the only? We have more than one. Okay. I'm looking at the list here. I'm just so there must be 2 guys. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Bull. All right. So we're going to ask our young people to come up. Let me just quickly talk about the purpose of the Youth Commission. The goal is to encourage youth involvement, bridging the gap between adults and youth of the city, enhancing leadership skills, to give young people the opportunity to voice policy ideas and their concerns about the city. Provides obviously an opportunity for good civic participation from some of our brightest young people, young leaders, while promoting positive activities and opportunities for our community. So we're going to be asking our young people to comment on legislation and policies that impact young people, partnering with other youth organizations on shared issues, preparing peers for leadership roles throughout the community, and also helping us create public service programs that improve the lives of our youth. So we're going to have of course, a call to action. I want to make sure that we're going to have an opportunity now to swear in our new youth commission. So joining us here today, I call your name. I want you to stand on up, and we're going to, I'm not sure, we're going to have them come right up here, or we're going to have them right there in front of the oaths. Hayden Cohen. It's Hayden Cohen. All right, Hayden. Come up and turn around so your dad can take your picture. Ms. London Patel. Mr. Ronit Patek. Ronit? All right. Ms. Lainey Strickland. And Ms. Shania Williams. So also elected by their peers, but not here with us tonight, are Savannah Folding, Taganda Gilmore, we have Shiana Gilbert, and Faith Robertson. So we got a superstar bunch, and I'm so excited, so excited about them. So I want you to raise your right hand. Turn back around.
Yeah, want to turn the paper so.
So just as we meet and other city land use commissions meet, the youth commission will be meeting as well. They'll be meeting here, and we'll have some good business to discuss. So we're going to be relying on you all heavily to help us decide how this city moves forward. This is meant to be a city for all people. We're very proud of the city that our parents built and the one that we're building together right now. It's going to be up to you all to help us take it into the future. So thank you all for stepping up. Congratulations on your election. All right? All right. All right. Savvy, you got Savvy? I saw the whole
Yes.
Savvy crew come rolling up in here.
Yes, the Savvy crew is here, our Savvy Arts Venture Challenge. I will ask Mr. David Cutler, another friend and my Liberty Fellowship classmate, to come forward. He is with the USC School of Music, the Director of Music Entrepreneurship, and the Savvy founder. We have two things going on this evening, David. I know you'll briefly explain it to council. Hey.
Hey, David.
Well, hello. It's so nice to see you. It is such a pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to just chat for a few minutes. We are in the midst of the 6th season of the Savvy Arts Venture Challenge. This is a program unlike any other on the globe, and it's one of the reasons that we've had artists. We have a group of about 75 artists who have traveled from as far away as Rwanda to be here with us this week in Columbia, South Carolina. And I always love that when we're doing something here that no one else is doing, where we are taking the mantle of the first place. This is a week-long design game that we're playing. And the challenge of this game this season is that we've identified 8 local non-arts businesses or entities. And we have 8 teams of participants, of artists from all different backgrounds. We have people in music, theater, dance, visual art, design, and arts administration, a huge range of ages and geographies, of races, of backgrounds, of interests and the likes, but all spectacular human beings. The challenge involves pairing each of these teams with one of these local organizations, and I'm very delighted to say that the City of Columbia is one of these community partners. Others include the Columbia Fireflies, Nephron Pharmaceutical, First Community Bank, Freshly Grown Farms, the Proof Alcohol Ice Cream, and I'm leaving off a few of them. The City of Columbia's Police Department, of course. And so this process began by each of our partners identified 3 challenges that they faced. We went through a process on Sunday where each of the teams interviewed the liaison and asked more questions, and we ultimately boiled that down to 1 challenge. And now they're spending the week to develop an arts-based solution to one of these problems or opportunities from our non-arts partner. We're at about the halfway point, and so this evening, each of our teams are going to dine with the different partners to learn more about them, to build community. And so I'm very delighted to introduce to you one of the teams that has been paired with the City of Columbia. And can I acknowledge our Savvy team? Can you stand? I think one of the things is so much of the time across the nation and beyond, when businesses meet, when governments meet and the likes, there isn't an artist to be found in the conversation. And that might come to the detriment of those organizations because artists are wired differently. We have a different way of approaching the world. On the flip side, as artists, we are often not placing ourselves in those conversations, and that definitely comes to our detriment. So part of this game that we're playing is to hopefully impact both sides of that equation and to say, what would happen if a community, and certainly a community like Columbia, South Carolina, decided that we wanted to have these 2 communities come together to solve problems in different ways than we have, and of course we're doing that in many ways already, but to try different kinds of partnerships. And so it's a really exciting experiment, and we're delighted to be able to say hello to you tonight.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Sad.
If you see a few members of our staff leave, they are going to join the Savvy Arts group, 2 different groups. Some of our police department, there will be eating down the street at 1800 Main at our Metro facility, and another group, including Leisha and Missy Kaufman and Pam, they will engage with a group at Villatronca. So you're about to really get into some great conversation and help solve these challenges. Thank you.
It's always exciting when Sav is going on. Thank you, David. Thank you, the whole team. Thank you guys so much. Let's have some fun. We won't be offended if you slip out of the meeting.
Oh, they're going to eat, so.
Yeah, there are more fun places to be, I'm sure.
All right, thank
All right.
you. Our next recognition is of National Home Ownership Month, the Honorable Mayor Stephen K. Benjamin.
Proclamation to read, but before everyone starts to slip out, I do want to thank Lauren Harper. Lauren, just stand up. Lauren doesn't even work for us anymore, but she worked so hard to help pull together the Youth Commission. And she did fantastic work working on this for quite some time. So thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. Now, do you want to speak first before I read the proclamation? Please. Gloria.
Good evening,
Hey,
Mayor
Gloria.
Benjamin. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Members of City Council and Ms. Wilson, how are you? We're excited that we are celebrating National Homeownership Month. And in doing so, we have several things scheduled for the month. This past Saturday, on June 1st, the staff held a home ownership workshop at Earlwood Park. They had about 20 people in attendance. And actually on this Saturday, we will be at Earlwood Park once again in celebrating All Access Columbia. This year, instead of having one large event, we're doing 4 events this year. This is our second one, and we're going to have homeownership training. We're going to have some workshops to show people how to do tiling at home, how to do some gardening and some different things. So whether you're a homeowner or whether you rent, we want folk to come out and join us so that we can show them about all the great things that they could do at their home, whether they're homeowners or renters. So in celebrating National Homeownership Month, we do want to recognize 2 of our partners. One is an organization that's been very beneficial to us during the past year. This is the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. We're recognizing them as our partner in excellence. The Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union is a community development lending partner. They have assisted us with our affordable housing loan program, serving customers at or below 80% of the area median income by providing first mortgage loans at very attractive interest rates. In addition, Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union has joined us by participating in many of our community outreach events as we educate citizens about the home buying process. I'd like to ask Sam Cox, who's the mortgage manager for Palmetto Citizens, to please come forward. Also, we want to recognize Ms. Gemma Smith. If you can also come forward, Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith is going to receive an award for preserving the dream. And she's actually someone who purchased a house in the Lion Street community. If you all are familiar with the Lion Street community, you know that there's been a lot of work done in that area over the past 5 years through the Columbia Housing Development Corporation, with Richland County, and also the Columbia Housing Authority and the State Housing Authority. There were funds that were received through the City of Columbia where we all collaborated and used various sources to make sure that you could see a lot of the development that you have going on there. So it just speaks to the importance of partnership as it relates to home ownership. So we would like to recognize, and I have certificates, and then Mayor, you could read the proclamation.
Yes, ma'am.
I have the certificate to give to Palmetto citizens and thank them for your partnership with the City of Columbia's Community Development Department. And also for Ms. Gemma Smith, preserving the dream. It's a pleasure working with you all. So, Mayor.
We believe homeownership is the American dream, and it's close to the heart of Columbia, South Carolina. Homeownership Month is an opportunity to reaffirm the important role that home plays for our citizens and our neighborhoods. For over 41 years, the Community Development Department has been working to help revitalize communities and provide affordable housing and financial information to the citizens of Columbia. And whereas a new homeowner receives a key that does more than unlock a door, it represents a place where children can grow, learn, and feel safe, an opportunity to save money and build equity for the future, and a sense of stability and belonging to the greater community. And just as it builds strong families, homeownership is a building block of strong communities too. And whereas the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Columbia Field Office of HUD have made great strides in opening housing markets to underserved groups, thus giving many more Americans an equal opportunity to live wherever they choose. And whereas homeownership is good for the home buyer, it is the American dream, and during National Homeownership Month, we rededicate ourselves to that dream and to every American who seeks to achieve it. Therefore, I, Stephen K. Benjamin, Mayor of the City of Columbia, along with my fellow members of Columbia City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2019 as National Home Ownership Month.
Our final presentation is the South Carolina Ag and Art Tour. Mr. John Newman, the chair of the Richland County Ag plus Art Tour Planning Committee.
Kevin.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having me. I was here back last fall talking about giving a status report on your newly formed Columbia Food Policy Committee, and we're still working hard on making some policy recommendations. But tonight I'm here about the Ag and Art Tour. I've been working on farm tours since 2014, and in 2012, the Ag and Art Tour started up in York County, and has since grown to 10 counties. Richland County will be the first, it'll be our first year of participating in the tour. You all have some flyers there in front of you. It's going to be June 29th and 30th. The Ag and Art Tour, statewide tour, has won lots of tourism awards, and it's had great success, and we're very proud to be part of it now. This year we have they have primary sites, which are farms and farmers markets, and we have 5 sites. 2 of them are within the city limits, which will be Soda City Farmers Market and City Roots are participating. We also have 3 farms in the Blythewood area and 1 in Lower Richland participating. We also have some ancillary sites which are listed on the program as, while you're here, go visit these, and they have to be related to either the local food or farming or the arts. I'm proud to say that 4 of the 5 of our sites, ancillary sites, are right here in the city of Columbia. 3 of them in our beautiful Vista Artisan District, and 1 of them, Councilwoman Bedora, the Crave on Millwood, and all their sandwiches are named after streets in the Historic Millwood Association, where our new park's going, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's...
Can you not name them after council members?
Oh, yeah.
Got a ham sandwich.
We'll work on that one.
Got a ham sandwich.
Go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
But Lewis and Clark Stormwater Studio and One Ear Cow will also be, they're clustered together, will also be participating. We're really excited about this. We've been working really hard on it. We started way back in 2017 with the Midlands Food Alliance, raising the funds for this. Susan Carson Lambert can take responsibility for raising the funds for this year. The tour is free, to participants, to the tourists, to the artists. We have over 30 artists, from metal workers to painters to potters to jewelry makers, who will be throughout the 5 farms. And but as I say, it's free. It still comes at a cost.
Sure.
We raised the money for this year. We're proud to say, if it passes 3rd reading, we've got Richland County H-Tax funds for supporting us next year, and hopefully, the city will help support a little bit too. Like I said, the Richland County tour dates are the 29th and 30th, and we also are having a kickoff party it's called A Taste of Ag and Art. It sent its in on June the 21st. Just a little preview of what people can expect. Some of our farmers will be there. There'll be a food truck with food prepared from the farms, ingredients from the farms. There'll be artists there, live music, and we'd love to have y'all come out too. And I tried a couple of times, try to find a way to get some of these flyers posted on the city's website, but I trust we'll get it done now.
You can talk to Ms. Uzi right behind you. John, thank you so much. All right, thank y'all so much. And the 21st is the event.
The 21st is the kickoff party, right?
Okay, I'm not sure if we have that information here. That may be here as well.
There's a flyer of that.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see it now. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, John.
See you on the
Thank you.
farm.
All right, brother.
Thank you. Sounds good. Thank you.
City manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, if you would, at the appropriate time, open a public hearing regarding ordinance number 2019-009, amending the 1998 Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, Chapter 5, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 6, to add vacant building registration. And I know that David Hatcher is here to come forward with some brief introduction of the proposed ordinance. As we did in today's work session, I think obviously you all were able to go into some depth there, but we did want to provide a little feedback for the public at this time.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council, Ms. Wilson. Thank you again for this opportunity to present this ordinance and for consideration. The ordinance I'm going to present to you is the vacant building ordinance, as we talked about earlier. I want to give a quick overview so everybody can be aware of what it is. Essentially, today's situation with code enforcement, the most common complaint that I get when I go to neighborhood meetings or when I'm dealing with interacting with citizens or neighborhood leaders is, what are we doing about the vacant buildings? It's a big issue. It's a big priority. While vacant buildings themselves are not a violation, one of the issues we have is just people maintaining them to minimum code and keeping them up and properly maintaining them. They do pose a hazard over time as they continue to deteriorate. They create a blight for the neighborhoods that they're in. So this ordinance, I feel, addresses the need for us to, or it gives us the tools that we need to enforce those and hopefully improve the look of the neighborhood. Part of the driving force behind this is if y'all heard of the broken window theory, essentially it's a theory that was introduced in the 1980s. That's, crime, blight leads to crime. If we can reduce crime, blight leads to crime. If we can reduce blight, we can reduce crime. So that's kind of the driving force. With that, I did take a look at the City of Columbia crime data over the last 10 years and compared that to the boarded buildings. We have 250 boarded buildings approximately in the City of Columbia. Looked at the crime data over the last 10 years, and the crime I looked at was aggravated assaults, auto breakings, burglary, criminal sexual conduct, murders, motor vehicle thefts, and robberies. And in the next few slides, you'll see kind of the maps that I created from that. The dots on the map represent the boarded houses, and then the darker areas are the crime hotspots. As you can see, that really correlates. I think everything with the exception of motor vehicle thefts pretty much correlate with where the boarded buildings are. The primary objectives I was hoping to achieve with this ordinance are to, first of all, identify the vacant buildings in the city. We don't really have any for sure idea of where they are. We want to establish a local contact, somebody that we can hold accountable, and we can go knock on their door and try to get them to correct any issues with the vacant buildings. We want to create a mechanism to hold property owners accountable. We want to discourage vacancies. We don't want them sitting forever vacant, so we want to try to discourage them and get them back into the production as quick as possible. We want to reduce blight and crime, and also the last part of it is to revamp the boarded building ordinance. I have, when writing this ordinance, I researched several other municipalities and counties across the country that have vacant building ordinances. I looked at over 15 of them, and I have a correction from earlier today. It's 2 in South Carolina, not 3. City of Casey has one, and the City of Sumter has one. Just a quick, some of the key components, some of the major things I noticed when I looked at those ordinances. Obviously, every one of them has a requirement for registration. Most of them require you to renew that registration every year, biannual, whatever the various time increment is that they come up with. Almost all of them charge a fee. Many require that properties to have some sort of property insurance. They also many of them require a vacant building plan. Many of them require a local agent. Most of them have an exemption provided for whatever situation. And many of them require annual inspection. And they also provide an appeal process. So those are some of the key components I found when I was researching what other people were doing. And with that, in this ordinance, I do have the annual registration once a year from the date that they actually get that they register. So instead of doing them all at one time, whenever they come in, it's 1 year from the date that they come in. We provide some exemptions. I'll go over those briefly here in a second. We're requiring a vacant building plan. I'll give you some more detail on that. We want the local agent. We also plan to inspect the buildings and put them into categories so we can kind of, for our own use, to know what kind of conditions we're dealing with on those 3 different categories. We're requiring annual inspections, and we're also going to allow for some penalties, and there are some fees we're proposing with that. The exemptions, quickly, the first one is if the building's actively being marketed for sale or rent, they'll be exempt from the fees, but they'll still have to register is the proposal. I think we'll have to revise it a bit. Buildings that are actively being renovated will be exempted, and buildings that serve as a primary residence in which the owner is away for extended period of time for work, vacation, military, or medical reason, and then government buildings. The vacant building plan I mentioned is will be a requirement. It'll be part of the application process when they apply for the registration. One of the things included in that will be the reasonably expected period of vacancy, when they plan to occupy it, a written consent giving the city of permission to do inspections during the time the building's vacant to make sure everything's staying up to code and there's no safety issues. The plan needs to address any public nuisances that are already outstanding. We'll bring that to their attention when they come to do the registration. When they plan to occupy it, and just how they're planning to keep it secure and keep people and vagrants out of them. The vacant building categories, 3 categories. Category 1 is no current code violation on the structure or premise. Category 2 would be minimal code violations, and then Category 3 would be severe code violations. Category 3 would probably be ones that we'd be pursuing demolition on at some point or another. The fees, again, there was a wide range of how the other jurisdictions did fees. The proposal in front of you is to have an initial registration at no charge to encourage everybody to get registered, and so we can kind of know where all those buildings are. And then the renewals will go up each year that it's vacant. It's an effort to discourage vacancies. Obviously, our goal would be to get these buildings fixed up and back into use. And there's also an inspection fee included. And then it gives us some civil enforcement penalties for people that are non-compliant that we can assess to violations or issues we're dealing with on those properties. And then the last quick thing, the boarded building ordinance, currently it only allows for structures to be boarded for 90 days. I'm proposing we add an exception in there for longer periods if somebody needs to board them longer. However, we have a requirement so that they use plexiglass instead of plywood, so at least from the street it doesn't look boarded, as you can see in the examples from the picture. The one on the left is the way we traditionally board them. The one on the right is with this plexiglass material, so you can't really tell from the street as much that it's boarded. That's really the quick overview. I think this ordinance really gives us the tools that we need to enforce the vacant buildings, and I appreciate you all considering that today.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah. Before we vote, I'd like to go on record and congratulate David and his staff for the work that has gone into producing this particular document for council's consideration. I think you can tell from the presentation that they did not restrict themselves just to this area, but taking a look all over the country for comparisons and for quality impact, and that's kind of what we need. So I think it's something that we should continue to consider and hopefully approve as a council, given our history and the feedback that we get from people who live and work and recreate in the city of Columbia. Long needed, and I think it will help to add to some of the better parts of the quality of life in the city.
Mr. Mayor. Thanks, sir. Yes, sir.
And
thank you, Mr. McDowell.
David, let me just say a word of thanks to you. This in itself puts more teeth into the whole issue of pieces of property. Some pieces of property, of course, can be rehabilitated. We recognize that. And of course, for some pieces of property, they've gone too long without without anything being done. The houses are just there, they've been there. We understand that there's some financial limitations, some budgetary costs associated with demolishing a house, but we also know that perhaps all houses don't have to be demolished. A lot of the houses, of course, can be rehabbed. And of course, this in itself helps us to identify who those persons are who owns pieces of property that have not been visited in a number of years, and it gives us an opportunity to get a better handle on that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Still in discussion?
Yeah, please, you have something else?
We appreciate your time, David. I know we've talked about this ordinance in work session, and the only thing that I'd like to visit maybe between now and the second reading, of course, is to reach out to some of the business owners and the business associations that has a lot of commercial property and maybe define a fee structure that is different from residential and commercial properties, if that's possible, or that we can come up with maybe a little bit more realistic program when it comes to residential or commercials. That being said, I'm not scared or I can move forward with the first reading as long as we give us a little bit of time to maybe adjust or define some of the points that I just pointed out into between now and the second reading. Just with that being said, I'm fine moving forward.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just one last thing.
Yes, sir, Mr. McDonald.
Let me ask you this, David, and of course, we talked about this earlier. For communities that have historical coverings, this does not apply to those pieces of property. Is that right?
Well, they would still have to register, but it doesn't affect, I mean, it's not like we're going to go tear the house down or anything. It's just letting us know where they're at. And in fact, in the discussion earlier, I think if maybe part of the application process, we'll have them check a mark that says it's in a historic area, just so we can, for data purposes, really to know where they're at.
You can't manage what you can't measure, right? So we've got to make sure we can measure it first and know exactly where everything is. Mr. Davis? We got public hearing. Public hearing.
Yeah. Just one thing that I think we all have considered in the potential approval of this, and that is that part of the issue and something that constantly comes up is demolition of a house in a neighborhood. That's been taken into consideration, and I'm convinced that demolition is not always the preferred result, because if you demolish a piece of property in a neighborhood, now you have a vacant lot, which becomes high maintenance. Somebody has to keep it clean, and you don't want it to be a haven for people who don't intend to do the right thing. So that's to, I think, satisfy some concerns. That's something that we did in fact consider, and something that I consider and look at and sometimes are involved all the time. So demolition is not always the end result. We don't particularly want to see that happen, because it's a negative on a neighborhood.
All right. We are in a public hearing, so I want to make sure we actually hear from the public. So we have at least one person who's signed up to speak specifically on this ordinance. I think, Ms. Bruce, you plan to speak or just signed up to hear? And if anyone is here to speak in favor of or against the ordinance, this is the time to do it. Madam Clerk, the rules are?
Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. When you have 15 seconds remaining, there'll be a yellow light.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, hello, everybody. Catherine Bruce. I'm going to be quick. And I did read the ordinance and sat in on the meeting and heard the discussion earlier. And I have objections to the fact that some of the language shouldn't reflect the fact that we do want to make accommodations for people with income, so that we'll have to, with income issues, or historically, in that area that are poor. So that language will have to be fixed. The broken windows theory, I think that's been kind of challenged. So we're not making a decision based on the fact that windows are broken, and so that means everything is bad. I did hear that a lot of property is owned by organizations that are not paying taxes. So perhaps some of the burden can be shifted where you have residential folks who are paying this fee. Perhaps you can shift some of that to the institution. So everybody can register, but there's not going to be a fee attached to lower income people who are trying to resolve this issue. And past that, so you, instead of a $500 fee, maybe a $1,000 fee to the institutions that have more resources. So that could be discussed and considered. And finally, I'd like to see a funding source made available to low-income people who need to repair these properties. So that could be forgivable loan, it could be just flat-out grant, but create a pot of money that would help people who cannot go to the bank and get anything, but this would help them to build wealth, and it would help us to reduce the wealth gap that we're trying to reduce in our communities. So hopefully y'all will take those and tinker a little bit with your ordinance.
Thank you. Oh, very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bruce.
My name is Doretha Bull. I'm sure some of you know. Pull the mic down just to you a little bit. I'm short. My name is Doretha Bull. I'm sure some of you know me, or most of you should. Anyway, I read this ordinance through and through, and I'm gonna tell you my first, because I'm very emotional. And when I read it, the first thing I saw was that the City Council of Columbia, South Carolina, is trying to eliminate poor non-European people from their area. Now, that's just my personal opinion. The other thing I ask is this: why are we registering property that's already registered on the tax books? You have every piece of property on the tax books, whether the taxes are paid or not. So I'm asking, why are we duplicating? Why are we charging taxes and registration fees for the same piece of property? The other thing is that poor people like myself, I'm not going to say I'm not poor, because I am. I'm without funds. I'll put it that way. We need assistance from the city to help us maintain our property. I've been paying over $2,000 a year to maintain my property. I have a sign up there. The sign doesn't mean anything to the people in the community because most of them are not property owners. They've never did anything in terms of property, so they really don't understand. They throw stuff on. But when your people come by with code enforcement, I'm the one having to pick it up and pay for it. I have contractors coming through. They saw that I had the dumpster there to pick up stuff for myself, and they started throwing all their contract and stuff. I had to pay an extra $700 in addition to the $600 for the original thing. Now, the police department only comes through when I'm on the property, and they ask me who I am. I tell them. When I was living there on the property, the police didn't do anything. I had my house broken into 5 times. Not once did they recovered anything. One time they came in and said they couldn't dust for fingerprints, but that was it. But my thing is that poor people in the city of Columbia, number one, this ordinance has not gone out to the community. They know nothing of this. Then you all are going to sit and read it the first, second, and third times and tell us this is the law. I think it needs to be introduced to every homeowners association in the city of Columbia before you all start reading anything for approval, so that you can understand and they can understand that you're on the same page.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Bell.
Thank you. And I also would like to request that the city of Columbia, They're good, you're all good at getting grant money and that kind of stuff. Why can't you all assist us in getting some grant money to help fix up our properties, even if it's a one-time grant?
We can discuss that as well. We have actually done that, Ms. Bull.
Well, you need to let us know
Okay.
about it, because we don't know. You know we don't.
We've done the MAP program and the PAIR program in the
The
past.
what now?
It's called the MAP program and the PAIR program. And
Now, what is
the
the
GAP
MAP program?
We'll share the information with you.
Don't share it with me, share it with everybody in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Bull.
Can you come to our community meeting and share that program, that information?
Ms. Saeed? Thank you, Ms. Saeed. All right, and share with Ms. Bull some of the specifics, because we have to refund the program again, but we set aside, was it $1.5 million in that, or $1.5 million in the two programs? So let's talk a little bit more about it. All
We
right?
need to talk.
Thank you, Ms. Bull.
Definitely.
So good to see you.
Definitely.
All right. Anyone else here to speak in favor of or against the ordinance? All right, thank you. Declare the public meeting closed. All right, thank you. And then, and some of the points, and we have, boys, you guys take care, all right? Thank you for being here with us, all right? All right, get those badges. I want to see 3 Eagle Scouts in a few years. All right. And let's take note of Ms. Bruce's points as well, and we'll talk about those more between now and later. Is there any further discussion amongst council? Is there a motion?
I move first reading of the ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Move the previous question. Clerk call roll.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Bedura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Aye. I do know the press covered, of course, work session pretty aggressively, and I think at least Josh is probably here in the room somewhere. Let's see, I see him. Let's make sure we continue to push it out. I think even from the discussion earlier and tonight, we've found a few other ways to continue the work to perfect the ordinance. Let's keep doing that. And but David, thank you guys so much for your work. I do want to make sure that the issues regarding equity, that we continue to focus on them and think of creative ways to make sure that we give people both, that we give people the opportunity to improve their properties that they may not be able to improve themselves, but at the very same time making sure they're not having to deal with blight in their communities that may arrest their property values and affect their quality of life. So we can chew gum and walk at the same time. So let's try and do it. But thank you very much. All right. Damn, that's crazy. No. Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Diana Taylor. I live on Euclid Avenue in Eau Claire area. I've been there 40 years, and there's some houses been in there for 20 years, and nobody did nothing. They're just sitting there. I don't know what code enforcement does, but they do not check these properties, and these abandoned places need to be done. Something need to be done to them. I just went around in the neighborhood to see, I got 10 houses that's abandoned, and they've been there.
Can we get David back in here before he gets in the elevator? I want to make sure if there's some specific houses that
Yes,
Ms. Taylor has a list of, he needs to make sure he has it.
I have a list of them.
Get the mic.
And I just went right around in a youth circle. I didn't even go no further, just in a youth circle, and
Yes,
came
ma'am.
up with 15 houses abandoned. 2 of them been there for the last 15 years, I know.
Yes,
Ain't
ma'am.
nobody did anything.
That's exactly what we're trying to address right here.
That's what we're
Yes,
trying to
ma'am.
address, Ms. Taylor, is, because at this point, like Mr. Hatcher said, there's nothing illegal about a house being vacant. And so unless there's major code issues, which if there are some with the ones you looked at, Mr. Hatcher can look those up and let you know if we have a code case. But sometimes if we have a code case, the issue is, and that's the reason for the registration, it's hard to contact someone to say, you need to fix your property, these are some of the issues, and that's what he's trying to address with this.
If I can go down to the housing, to the land place and find out who own these houses, they can do the same thing. All they do is get the address.
It's not always that easy, Ms. Taylor. It's not always that easy.
Well,
Can you make sure those those addresses that Mr. Hatcher has those? He's right here. Make sure he has those
It's
addresses.
just ridiculous, and I mean, I've been there, and all I do is rat. If I had to sell my home, I couldn't sell it because it's too many abandoned houses in the area. Grass up here in some of the places, in lots that's empty.
Can you give Mr. Hatcher the list? I would imagine, Mr. Hatcher, if you get with her, probably half of those are probably already cases. If it's like what she said, you probably already have a case on it, but she might not understand or might not have been told what the issues are. So if you could communicate with Ms. Taylor, just so she knows, and if there are some that you don't have on your list, make sure they're added.
Yeah.
And of course, if there are houses that have already been tagged because of budget restraints, not being able to do that, that may be the issue.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, Mr. McDowell, exactly what you're saying. I think sometimes the neighborhoods look at, well, this has been up here for 15 years. They don't recognize the challenges that we have as the city of getting some of those things addressed. So kind of the between both of the concerns of the neighborhood saying, you know, code enforcement's coming and they're on me and I can't afford to fix it up, and people saying, well, nothing's being done. Code enforcement has to do within the law what they're able to do. And so I think this is an opportunity to recognize that homeowners might need we might need some additional assistance, but registering them so we know who to contact when there's an issue. But if Mr. Hatcher can get your list, I'm sure he can get you the information on them.
Well, I feel if you put a fine on these people, they ain't gonna let them houses
It's
stay
not
no
that
15
easy, Ms.
years.
Taylor. We don't have that ability. We don't have that ability.
Well, they had the ability to cancel my home insurance if I don't keep it fixed up.
Well, that's your insurance company, and you have a
So,
contract with them. And I don't want to debate you, but it's honestly, it's not that easy. I understand your frustration. I hear it all the time, but it's really not that easy for us.
Mr.
Okay,
Davis?
and the yards, the lots too, all that involved in that, so.
That would be a part of a code case if he has it, yes, ma'am. And
I say
and
one
David,
more?
can you share with us as well the information you give her on the houses, like what's the status of them, so we can know what they are?
Okay, can I say one more thing? And we seniors would like to have some more houses built, but not apartments. We would like to have them in rows because we older, we can't go up the steps, and we don't like the elevator too much, so we would like to see some more senior apartments come up in the future if possible.
Thank
The city help.
Yeah. Mr. Gordon, I'm glad you came tonight, and as you heard that we've discussed this very issue that you're talking about, and you did discuss it with me, and this is an attempt to do exactly what you're talking about. And I came by the other night, and I did visit that particular house, the cars in the yard and so forth, and I'll be sharing that with David also, and you give him those numbers, he will follow up as Mr. Devine and Mr. McDowell is telling you. Also, I was glad to see you at the ribbon cutting, and I think we were doing exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
People like you worked for quite a while, live alone, and now you'd like to move out of the house. You don't want that responsibility of a house, and you're looking for affordable housing for seniors.
Yes.
That was a senior project last week, and so we are really attempting to do that also. So, and as I said to you, stay in touch with us, and we depend on people like you also to make us aware of what's going on in your neighborhood. And I'm going to look to see you at the neighborhood meeting starting this month, Hyatt Park, and and thank you for coming.
Amen. All right.
That's David.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. All right.
One item for second reading, a zoning planning matter.
Did you have something to add, sir? On the same issue, sir? All right.
But on the same
On the ordinance, yes, sir, please. And say your name for the record if you don't mind.
my name is Ronald Hollis.
Yes, sir.
I'm not in the neighborhood, but my parents passed away
Yes, sir.
a couple of years back. And the kids inherited the house.
Yes, sir.
We went to probate court. They allowed two people, they would only talk to two people to be executive of the state. it's been a while now, and I've also sent out certified letters to each of my brothers and sisters, because I said I'm stop paying the property tax. I'm not gonna pay anymore. Let's sell the house. So it's one person that don't want to sell, so I'm in a predicament. What can I do?
You asked about under the proposed ordinance, if you're tied up with your family in probate court, how do you comply with the ordinance without seeing the penalties? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, well, we actually discussed that today. I'm gonna let you talk to Mr. Hatcher as well, but specifically, there will be provisions for folks who are in your situation to not see the fines or enhanced registration fees if in fact there's a legitimate challenge that you're facing with your family on addressing the issues. We're still, of course, going to aggressively pursue that the house not be boarded up, and that there's some ways in which it can be aesthetically more pleasing for the rest of the folks in the neighborhood. But those issues will be handled independently, case by case.
Case by case.
Yes, sir.
But, Mr. Mayor, if I may, but that's under our ordinance, and I think the other thing I'm hearing from him about is kind of the payment of taxes. We have no control over that. If you don't pay your taxes, in what you told your brothers and sisters, the county will sell the property for non-payment of taxes.
Oh, they don't have a problem with paying the taxes, because I specifically told them I wouldn't pay any more on taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's sell the house. And I guess one or two don't want to sell, but they continue to pay the tax.
Okay.
You don't have to pay.
That's a family.
So, yeah, so as far as we're concerned, Mr. Hatcher can talk to you about what we're considering the appeal process.
You want to have a word too, ma'am? Please. Yes, ma'am. Y'all know we closed this public hearing about 20 minutes ago. But please. Yeah, no, absolutely. Please. No, we don't hear.
I apologize. My name is Kay Patterson.
Yes, ma'am.
And is this ordinance pertaining to just homeowners, or will it also include business? There are vacant buildings and stuff. I've seen buildings for years just sitting dormant.
That's what we're trying to do.
And people have access in and out of it.
These are commercial. This is commercial property we're talking about.
It's commercial property as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry for
That's all right. That's all right. Anybody else? No, good questions. Get better policy. So keep them coming. Thank y'all so much. The public hearing is over, but we'll have another opportunity to talk about this ordinance and opportunities, obviously, between now and then for folks to have more input. So thank you. Madam City Manager.
Yes, sir. Item 31, zoning map amendment for second reading, 1616 Gervais Street and 1620
So
Gervais
moved.
Street.
Second.
Discussion. Move the previous question. Clerk, call the roll.
McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Aye.
Ordinances first reading, ordinance number 2019-042, amending the 1998 Code of Ordinances of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, Chapter 23, Utilities and Engineering, Article 4, Wastewater Service.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Move the previous question. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Aye.
Item 33, ordinance number 2019-044, granting an encroachment to the Grand for installation and maintenance of 12 tables with umbrellas and 48 chairs within the tree zone.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, to move the previous question. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Aye.
Resolution number R 2019-047, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement between Richland County and the City of Columbia for the Innovista Transportation Project.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move the previous question. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Aye.
Ms. Jenkins is our liaison with the Savvy Group, so she's been working with them all week, and Erica and I will do our best to help you through your appointments, Mr. Mayor.
Move the reappointment of Latrell Harts to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Move the previous question. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. McDowell?
Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
Who'd you say?
Ms. Harts, the Trail Harts.
Reappoint the Trail
Yes, sir.
Yes. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Ms. Devine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis? Mayor Benjamin?
Aye.
Did you record my vote?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Move the appointment of Perry Orth to the River Alliance Board.
I move the appointment of Michael Powelson for the River Alliance.
How many seats you need?
There's one. It's the mayor's appointment. All right,
The mayor's appointee.
it's the mayor's appointee.
Where's the mayor's appointee? It's not the mayor's
That's
appointee.
designated, okay.
All right.
Is it a mayor
It says the
appointee?
mayor and one council person account for 2 of the seats. The other individual is appointed by council. So this is saying that we've got 2.
Designee.
Yeah, we have 3 seats.
Uh,
We have 3 seats total. The mayor and one council
The
person.
motion on the floor to appoint Perry Orth.
I'd second.
All right. Discussion.
Said it was his.
Move the previous question, clerk call the roll.
Mr.
Yes.
McDowell? Mr. Duval?
No.
Mr. Badura?
No. Really? Yes, aye, yes.
Ms. Devine? Mr. Davis?
I think I helped.
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Transportation Penny Oversight Committee. Seems like everybody's from District 4 in this thing right now. What's that about?
And he's not here.
Yeah, Daniel's not here, but, so we have
This-
Andrew
take
Schiavone
one.
from First Citizens Bank, Aaron Shire. I don't think we should put another District 4 appointee on.
Yeah.
District, Betty Kitt from Melrose Heights Street. I mean,
I'd like
I'm not sure where we
opportunity
are.
to submit the name next time.
How we, I mean, obviously, we always do with pending issues. We need to have someone there ASAP. Can we, when do we meet again?
No, the 11th is short meeting.
How short is it?
Who's that?
I
He had a great
Your
application.
next regular meeting.
He had a great application. I don't know him, though. He's a chair-elect of the United Way Young Leaders Society. We can hold it.
We can hold
Let's
it.
hold. We're holding on Oversight Committee. We have no, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say if
You want to open
I
back up?
forget your new name. Ms. Moore, what's your new name?
It's fine, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Ammon. Can we, I mentioned this before, and I know she does a great job trying to pull all this together. Can we just have Ashley put, because I think, again, she's putting, like, she put District 2 because that's the work address, and I know if it's not a city appointee, or city resident appointee, she's fine with that, but it's just confusing for us. If she could put
Residents.
resident District 1, or resident out of the city but works in District 2, or something to denote, just so we know. I just think that's, I mean, this is a committee that, you know, has county appointees as
and
well. So I think that if we can, at least we should have someone who lives in the city. And I think he does live in the city, but looking at the address, it looks like his address is probably District 3 or 4, but she has District 2, and that's where he works.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to hold off, want to reopen the applications for another 14 days? Yeah, for 14 days. Let's reopen for 14 days.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we're going to reopen the applications for 14 days. I want to remind you all, China Phillips also sent a note making sure we understood that her presentation earlier regarding the census, that's a preliminary presentation, and if you have any input that you may have to change things, let her know. The director of the Census Bureau will be here on Sunday over at Trinity Education Center. If anyone wants to meet Steve Dillingham, who also has some roots here in South Carolina, worked at the university actually at one point. He'll be at Trinity on Sunday at 5:30 p.m. But we're going to need some folks from District 1 and 2, Sam and Ed. So let's get some good names of folks included there.
You need one.
So again, her presentation was a draft. She's going to need feedback back before the end of the month. All right. Any work session issues to take up? Any committee reports or referrals?
No, sir.
We have no one else who all the public signees have spoken during the public hearing. We were ceding to executive session.
Yes.
All right, for matters previously noted in Mr. Duval's motion earlier. Seeing no other business, move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
So move.
All right. Do we not move? Or do we move adjourn after we come back?
We're receding into
We're
executive
receding into executive session, and we'll adjourn when we come back out. So we'll adjourn when we come back, but we will not be handling any other matters, and we still have closed the public hearing. So, thank y'all so much. All right, brief executive session. We're not adjourning. Withdraw the motion. We're not adjourning.
Motion withdrawn.
Brief executive session. What's up, bro? Chris. This is the next step. So first was dealing with absentee landlords and the challenges that were challenges and complications in making sure we had healthy neighborhoods. Now that the code enforcement process is working very well and aggressively to address those issues. Next step is dealing with commercial properties. We estimate that there are several thousand across the city. Some of them are not only vacant, but severely neglected. And we feel that those who own the properties need to make sure they maintain the properties, at least there's not a blight on